Yeah. Um, Emma, could you please start with the roll call? I'm calling the meeting to order.
Yes. Director Daniels?
Hasn't shown up yet.
Vice President LaHue?
I'm here.
Director Jaffe?
I'm here.
Director Christensen?
Here.
And President Lather?
Here. I think no, he's not there. Okay, so the next item is closed session. And I believe we have one public member that would like to comment. So can we set the watch and let her in?
Ms. Steinbruner?
Hey, Becky.
Hello, good evening. This is Becky Steinbruner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening to you all. I just want to again tell you that I really do not want to take the legal action that I am compelled to take. I'm only doing this because there are such, in my opinion, serious problems with the project and the way that it has been handled, especially in terms of the modified project, not even reaching out to schools within a quarter of a mile where these hazardous chemicals will be stored and used and trucked. And I have been in communication with Ms. Schiller, trying to negotiate with the district, and was offered something that was not acceptable. I did respond again to her request, and my last correspondence with her was on the 28th, and she said that she will be discussing this with you. So again, I want to ask, let's sit down and talk about this. Let's try and work it out. I don't want to bring on expense for your ratepayers any more than they already are being burdened with. I remember attending some of your special board meetings when you were first considering this project, and you were very concerned about having off-ramps. Do you remember that? Off-ramps. And I really think it's time for your district to look at this. The cost is exponentially higher. The problems are much more serious and problematic, and you're still working with a feverish pace just because of the terms of the $50 million grant. I want to try to talk with you about this and try to work out something that can be agreeable. I note that in Ms. Schiller's response to Mr. McGilvry's amicus brief, she did discuss the essence of the comment that the district failed to heed the Santa Cruz City Water Department.
Thank you, Ms. Steinbruner. Your time has ended.
And you really need to look at that. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go to closed session and return at, did we have a time or we just return?
We are aiming to come
6:30.
back at 6:30.
Okay, our plan is to come back at 6:30.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Dr. Daniels. They all just
Hello.
moved to closed session.
Oh, okay, I'll go there.
Okay.
Hi, Cameron.
Hello.
I think my phone's charging. All right. This is really hard.
No, just picking up my tablet.
Right, my computer decided to freeze up, so I had to restart. Do we have everyone?
Well, I see 3 of us.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Okay, so hold on, let me get to my notes. So we are returning from closed session, and there is nothing to report. Is that correct, Josh?
That's correct. Thank you.
Uh-huh. So now we'll be at item 3. Do any board members want to remove items from the consent agenda?
Nothing from me.
Okay. Nothing for Tom either?
Nope.
Okay, Director Jaffe, do you have anything to remove?
I do not.
Director Christensen? Oops, you're muted.
I have nothing. I don't want to pull anything.
Okay, so then we can move forward with the consent agenda. Let's see.
I'll
Oh,
make the motion.
I
make the
guess,
motion.
Oh, comment.
wait a minute, we need to first
public,
have public comment, yes,
Just over the general consent.
for the
Okay, got it.
general consent agenda.
Yeah.
Was there a request for that?
Yes.
Yes, there was one.
Okay.
Ms. Steinbruner?
Hello, this is Becky Steinbruner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I would like to speak about consent agenda item 4.4, the increase for the urban water management plan. I would like an explanation of what the new information is that the county presented sort of late that modified the AMBAG population projections, causing an extra presentation and other iterations. I would like information about the 10 draft demand scenarios that resulted from this change. And I would like information about the erroneous consumption entry and customer categorizations that were in error and had to be changed due to the changes in the billing systems. I hope that you'll provide this information publicly tonight for for me and the ratepayers. And I do note that this plan has to be turned in July 1st of this year, and we'll look forward to this draft urban water management plan in April. Thank you, and I do hope that you will answer my questions here tonight, as I'm sure others have the same. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Steinbrunner. Do we have, I mean, that was a long list of questions. I don't see how anybody could have a response to that prepared, but we could consider maybe looking at it at a future meeting. Do I have any board comments or motion?
Going to move approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Roll call. Director Daniels,
Yes, please.
Vice President LaHue,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
Yes.
Director Christensen,
Yes.
and President Leather.
Yes. Okay, now we're at oral and written communications. I don't have my list here, but I believe we have public comment.
We do. Ms. Steinbrunner?
Hello, this is Becky Steinbrunner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little under the weather tonight, so I appreciate your good work. I did take a brief drive just to get out of the house today and went down on Monterey Avenue just to see if the drilling has begun at the Monterey Avenue injection well site. I got out of the car just to get some fresh air, and I did meet one of the residents there, Mrs. Costa, who lives at 829 Monterey, immediately behind the sound wall that the district has put up. She is very upset, and I would like to, she didn't know you had a board meeting tonight. She's exasperated because the date for them to move out has been moved up by almost 3 weeks. They've been told to be out of their house if they don't want to listen to the construction noise by March 8th. They have a dog, so they cannot go to the hotel, the Sea Cliff Inn that your district is offering to them. They thought they had an agreement with you to go to another hotel that could accommodate their family and their pet, and they were told today that they have to pay for that out of their own pocket, and that maybe the district would reimburse them, and the district will not accommodate any meals. Every neighbor, she said, is being told something different. And what I respectfully ask is that your staff call a public meeting and get all of these people on a Zoom meeting so everybody's hearing the same information, because nobody is hearing the same information. Many people are very upset, and in their health, interest of their health, and in smooth operations with your district, I ask that you call a public meeting for these people. They're very upset. And they didn't know anything about the problems with the diesel in the air and how the Monterey well site is the highest carcinogenic cancer risk of all of the projects. They didn't know that. So they need more information, and I'm asking you to give it to them in a uniform presentation in a public meeting. I also want to say that I had a conversation with Mr. Cole. He had no idea at your last meeting you were going to be discussing his requests. Nobody reached out to him at all. And in fact, Director Daniels did say, we don't know what Mr. Cole wanted. He's not here. He didn't even know that it was going to be discussed. So I request respectfully that you contact Mr. Cole and discuss with him what the board decided and confirm that it meets his requests. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So are there any oral communications from board members.
Michelle, I'd like to just comment on Becky's comment. I think the district should reach out in whatever way the staff thinks is appropriate, especially to that one person. I mean, there could very well be a misunderstanding. So I'd like to see the district reach out.
Director Jaffe, we will. We have a open line of communication with all the residents around there and have had multiple meetings, but we will do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ron.
Anyone else have anything to share at this time? Okay, then I'm going to move on to reports, and there are none. So then we're moving on to administrative business. There are no conditional and unconditional will serves. So we're to 7.2.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, board. I'm Shelley Flock. I'm the Conservation Customer Service Field Manager, and I'll be giving a brief intro on item 7.2, which is requesting board direction on the inclusion of using a rainfall-based trigger condition in our water shortage contingency plan update that we're currently working on. Before giving the intro, though, I'd like to introduce Mr. Cameron Tanna, the district's hydrologist from Montgomery & Associates. He's available on the call to answer any board technical questions. He's helping us put this, put the trigger conditions together. So with that, as you know, we're currently working on our 2020 Urban Water Management Plan update, and that is due to the Department of Water Resources on July 1st of this year. The big component of the urban plan is the water shortage contingency plan. And that's the tool that the district uses to conserve and protect our available water supply in times of shortages, whether they're long-term shortages due to overdraft and seawater intrusion or drought, as well as short-term production-related shortages. So in that water shortage contingency plan, the shortages are classified into stages based on the severity of the shortage, and stage 1 is really the least severe, calling for the least amount of curtailment, with stage 5 being the most severe. And with each of those stages, there's demand or supply management actions that either the district is doing ourselves or we're asking our customers to do, that are estimated to meet the level of curtailment needed to get through the shortage without compromising health and safety. And so when evaluating whether a shortage stage exists and the level of the shortage or curtailment needed, we, as part of our 2015 we use the following trigger conditions. We use rainfall totals over the past 5 years, correlated to estimated recharge. That's done using the precipitation runoff modeling system, and the presence of a groundwater emergency due to seawater intrusion and overdraft. And lastly, any production related shortages. So that's how our current plan is set up. Here, I'm trying to scroll down here. During the statewide drought, rainfall totals, in addition to a declared groundwater emergency, equated to a stage 3 declaration or curtailment by our board. That's a 25% reduction from 2013 levels. In the last couple of years following the statewide drought, the boards based the stage declaration on a groundwater emergency alone. And based on feedback from the board, in recent years, we've heard a desire to continue moving toward a specific groundwater-based trigger for the purposes of evaluating the need for the shortage stage and the curtailment level. Staff's currently working with our urban water management plan consultant, WSC, and Cameron Tana, our hydrologist. And as mentioned in the memo, a trigger condition based on groundwater levels and the monitoring wells will make the water shortage contingency plan consistent with the sustainable management criteria, which is the critical sustainability indicator of seawater intrusion identified in the GSP for the Mid-County, Santa Cruz County groundwater basin, and also the project performance metrics in the project evaluation and assessment plan for the Pure Water Soquel project. And so where we're at now is really moving toward those groundwater based levels, but asking the board for feedback on whether you continue to desire having a rainfall and recharge based trigger condition. And the pros and cons of that, keeping that rainfall trigger condition, are listed in the memo. And we're really hoping to kind of get some feedback on this tonight because we do have that deadline coming up, and we're hoping to really bring back a draft water shortage contingency plan in April and have a public hearing at that time to take public input on that plan. The options for using a rainfall trigger, there's 3 options that staff's identified. And so the first is keeping the existing rainfall trigger condition, which is based on that PRMS recharge model created by Cameron in 2011. Alternatively, we could update the rainfall condition or redo it using the rainfall recharge relationship used by the Santa Cruz Mid-County Groundwater model, the GS flow model used in the GSP and submitted to the state in 2020. The concern with that though is that that's a pretty big lift. We haven't budgeted for that, and also timing wise, it would take a substantial amount of time to run that, and we wouldn't meet and we wouldn't be able to incorporate that in the submittal of the urban plan in July. We could do it subsequently after. There's a question of whether or not that's worthwhile to do, given that level of effort and the fact that Pure Water Soquel is going to be coming online in late 2022 or 2023, and all of the conditions are going to change once that project comes online. At least that's the estimate from our hydrologist. So lastly, there's another option that's a little bit less technical, and it's really just based on declaring a trigger condition for that matches up with any statewide drought declarations done. So that would be the third option. Staff is really leaning toward option 1, but we're, of course, if the board feels that the other options are worthwhile, we can certainly pursue those. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to President Lather for discussion.
Thank you. Do we have public comment?
Yes, 1.
Ms. Steinbruner?
Hello, this is Becky Steinbruner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I want to first clarify that the County of Santa Cruz has not declared a groundwater emergency. Your district did. But if you look at the Bulletin 118 from the Department of Water Resources in 2007, your own document states that that bulletin was the basin was classified as overdraft, subject to critical conditions, at the request of the City of Santa Cruz and the Supervisor of Santa Cruz County. So I just want to put that information before you and the ratepayers again. I'm I'm curious, I request that you use current information that aligns with the Mid-County Groundwater Agency's documents, the GSP submitted to the state. The 2011 hydrometrics model is 10 years old. How accurate is it? And while I appreciate it would cost more money to use more current and possibly more accurate information, I think that's the purpose of this document. What is the point of spending any money on it at all if it is not accurate? So the district has known this work was needed since April of 2020. You put out the RFP to begin this process. But let's take the time now and the money now to make it accurate and to more closely align with what the Mid-County Groundwater Agency has already submitted for approval by the state. I would like to hear from Mr. Tana about how accurate the 2011 model is, the 10-year-old model, and if it fits with what has been seen. Is that at the time I just heard?
Your time is
staff.
up, yes.
All right, thank you very much. I look forward to hearing from Mr. Tana. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're back to board discussion. I can start with Director Daniels, or you can raise hands or whatever.
Well, okay. I find it kind of ironic that the speaker is encouraging us to spend money that she doesn't contribute to at all. And I find that kind of annoying. Also, to provide a really accurate recharge model is very, I mean, we're a long ways from that. It would require more than just simply using the Sigma stuff. I mean, there's stuff that's missing out of there. So to try and do it really well is important. And as the staff report mentions, we probably won't need it at all once we get Pure Water Soquel going, because that'll be half of our water supply supplied by Pure Water. So there will be a lot of water that we use now that we won't have to. So, you know, any kind of drought things, they'll have to be huge before we need to really worry about them. So I think that option one is the thing to do, is just keep what we've got and use that for now.
Thank you. Dr. LaHue, Vice President LaHue.
I guess I have a question. I had thought that, and maybe I'm just not understanding this. I had thought that there was going to be, and maybe this is, I mean, I want to hear from Cameron, like, I thought there was a development of groundwater-based criteria, and you were just talking about also keeping the rainfall trigger conditions as well, in addition to them. So maybe that could be clarified for me.
That is correct. We're moving toward more specific groundwater-based trigger based on groundwater levels. And Cameron can give a little bit more information about where we're headed on that. This would be in addition to those groundwater-based trigger. So
I guess
it could potentially provide kind of more of a forecasting, you know, we're in a low rainfall year now this year and last year. And so we've gotten less recharge. So, you know, we're still in a groundwater emergency too, but that's a sign after 2 drought years that we might, you know, be having less recharge and things are going in the wrong direction again. So we would also take into consideration that rainfall trigger.
So I guess, let me make sure I restate. So I would love to hear like a little more about the groundwater one. And then if I understand you correctly, Shelley, basically keeping the rainfall one as kind of like an early warning system, you know, so that we can get started on some protections and some curtailment before we see the effect on the groundwater measurements.
Correct.
Maybe this is a good time to unmute Cameron and he could respond to that. Hi, Cameron, you're there now.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yeah, so, I mean, I think the question is, how necessary are rainfall triggers, and
Well, I want to hear about the groundwater ones first.
Right, but what I think is what we're developing with the groundwater level triggers, I don't think the rainfall triggers are necessary. I think you could replace rainfall triggers with groundwater level triggers. As Shelley described, the rainfall triggers are another early warning system that could potentially give you information about how groundwater levels will be in the future. But I do think you have the option of just tracking groundwater levels. And the idea with the groundwater level triggers that we're developing is to make them more consistent with both the GSP, the Sustainable Management Criteria, specifically for seawater intrusion, because that's why your basin is in critical overdraft. So the groundwater elevation proxies that have been developed for seawater intrusion, as well as the project and evaluation plan for pure water Soquel. And that's really, as far as the supply of the basin and the sustainability of the basin, that really is, in my opinion, the best metric to track for how it's doing, especially with the pure water Soquel project coming online, which is more drought resistant. So seeing how groundwater levels react to pure water Soquel once it's online, and potentially having curtailment based off of that as opposed to rainfall triggers does make sense to me.
So can I just clarify then? There's really a fourth option, which would be to not keep the rainfall trigger condition in the contingency plan, and just use the groundwater ones that are being developed without updating the rainfall ones, and not without basing it on the statewide drought declaration.
Correct.
That
But
could
if
be
you
option
want to
4.
keep some sort of rainfall recharge
Okay.
trigger, the 3 options are listed in the memo.
Okay.
There is
Okay.
a fourth one. Okay.
Yes, Director Jaffe's next, but it looks like Carla has something.
Go ahead, Carla.
I was confused by that too. I don't, by the, how would this groundwater model be different than the one, the GS flow? Is that, are you talking about 2 different models, or over? No, it's not. So it's the same thing. Yet Cameron, you thought that the option 3, which is the GS flow groundwater model, would not be worthwhile. Why did you say that? Or is that an error?
Well, I think what Cameron's saying is that the groundwater conditions are a better indicator of the need for curtailment than rainfall. But we've traditionally always used rainfall because it's linked to recharge. And so
that's absolutely true. But is that flexible and timely enough to actually use it for making a critical decision? Would it be more sensitive than a statewide drought declaration where there's widespread lack of water? We're trying to trigger an emergency situation, and is it up to date enough and workable enough to use it for deciding on an emergency declaration?
And I guess that would be a benefit for keeping some sort of rainfall recharge trigger, because the groundwater level triggers that we're working on look backwards based on the monitoring data. And so they're behind, I guess they're behind. Whereas if you're looking at rainfall and recharge, you have something more in the moment or timely. So those predict what the conditions could be in, a year or 2 down the road. So that's the benefit of keeping both, really. And you also get the benefit because if there is low rainfall, likely a lot of the other county water agencies are going to be declaring some sort of curtailment, and we would basically be able to combine our outreach efforts through the Water Conservation Coalition, because we would also, you know, be messaging that low rainfall.
Okay.
Can I just mention, Carla, I think option 3 really is different than what we're working on as far as like the groundwater model as a basis. Option 3 was using the GS flow model to still do a rainfall based trigger.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That sounds good to me, because for a very long time, we've been talking about being able to use that model to actually make some getting some predictive help. So if that were possible, then that would be preferable.
Yeah, but the groundwater based trigger conditions, those are tied to the what are they called? The measurable objectives and the interim milestones and the GSP. And I would imagine that those were developed using that model is how they arrived at those requirements.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, just if I may jump in, that it's a two-part question. Now, the first question is, do you want to keep rainfall triggers? And then the second question is, if you do, or if the board as a whole decides they do, how do you want the rainfall triggers to be developed? It is my opinion is that you do not need rainfall triggers at this time. And based off of that, similar opinion, big changes to the rainfall triggers are not needed, because the relative change in rainfall, I feel for this purpose, gives you the idea of what rainfall conditions are like for the basin. But to me, it all comes down to the groundwater levels being the best indicator of your supply of water, and that's groundwater levels, especially with respect to the biggest risk to your basin, and that's seawater intrusion. And that was based off of modeling specific to seawater intrusion, not necessarily specific to the GS flow model. So those metrics are documented and adopted by the Mid-County Groundwater Agency. It's also the basis of a project assessment and evaluation plan for Pure Water Soquel to measure the success and effectiveness of Pure Water Soquel in meeting its goal of preventing seawater intrusion. So to me, that is the main metric. And the question is, do you want an additional metric on top of that? And then how to go about it. That is where, that's how I view it. Now, there are options in the groundwater level when developing groundwater levels. And right now our plan is basically to base it off of the metrics in the GSP, the Sustainable Management Criteria, and then evaluate the data from your wells against those metrics to see how the basin is doing for recovering the basin from overdraft and preventing long-term seawater intrusion. We did describe in 2019 an option to use the model as well to develop either groundwater level goals or pumping goals, but I do think it is sufficient and the best way just to use the groundwater levels without additional modeling, that we've done enough modeling to set us up to figure out how the basin is doing going forward. And that is what is being done annually for the Mid-County Groundwater Agency. I think we can be consistent with that with these curtailment triggers.
Well, I know what typically happens is that the trigger discussion happens late spring when the rainy season has either failed or something like that, and so we need some recommendation. And as a result, it is the sense of urgency for the upcoming summer is triggered by rainfall or a lack of it, and so that's an argument for keeping our options open on how we decide on what to do, when we decide to impose that kind of an emergency decision. So I agree with you that the groundwater model, from my impression of it, from participating in meetings, is that it gives us wide understanding, but it didn't feel that responsive in helping us get to a, decision on what to do for the summer. For example.
Yeah, it is absolutely correct that you will not really be responding to winter climate conditions if you get rid of the rainfall triggers. You'll be responding to overall groundwater level conditions, which is probably representative more of pumping over the summer than what happens with rainfall in the winter. And so if you do want to be able to respond to what happens with rainfall in the winter, then that does lead you to keep the rainfall triggers in place. And although it is not the most up-to-date information, if you are going to keep rainfall triggers, I think what we have developed 10 years ago is representative of the relative differences between, what's wet and what's dry over multiple years. And so I still think it can be used, even though it is, it has been information has been updated. There are more updated information that could be used, but it's from a practical point of view, just saying what, how have conditions been over multiple years relative to what we expect, it's still sufficient to use, especially in the next few years. So I could make it more accurate, but I don't see a lot of benefit in that.
Yeah.
Director Jeff,
I get to talk.
you get to talk.
I agree with pretty much everything that's been said. I think Director Daniels got discussion off on a good foot on talking about, maybe this is sufficient for now. And I forget who made the comment that probably multiple directors, that once we have the pure water Soquel, things are going to change. And I think that's really the time to change the shortest stages and curtailment targets. And granted, the rainfall totals are not a precise tool. They do give us a general conceptual framework, and just as the plan is now, it's not restrictive. If it said right now it's rainfall total or groundwater emergency or total production capacity, and if it was then I think it would be the time to really make sure that the rainfall totals were useful. But it's an or, and since we're in a groundwater emergency, I think that in a way it's a moot point here. We have the flexibility to manage the basin. I think this is a reasonable framework, and I would suggest that we keep what we have, and then really the time to reevaluate is when the new source of water is online, and then at that point bring in the water level triggers.
Bill, I completely agree with that too, because especially that once the Pure Water Soquel plant is in, there will be some significant cost factors to, in the face of a severe drought, increase production or decrease it in the face of, heavy rainfall season or something. I mean, there's going to be a completely different kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
In a couple of years.
Yep.
I agree. I would have said exactly what Bruce said, just using Rochelle's language rather than Bruce's. I don't see it being a good time to change how we're doing this until we know, what happens with the Pure Water Soquel and how that improves our groundwater. Yes, Bruce?
I would like to make a motion that we keep rainfall triggers and use option number 1.
Tom, you got to unmute yourself.
I'll second.
Sorry, before we vote, I just wanted to make a couple of points. I mean, I just want to make clear that I would like to see us be using Bruce mentioned three things, but I think we should be, an important one's going to be to use this new groundwater based criteria for making a decision. So to me, that should be the primary one that Cameron's been developing that fits in with the Mid-County Groundwater Agency's groundwater sustainability plan. And that should be our primary thing, because we may need to curtail whether we've had a lot of rain or not based on groundwater levels. And so I still think that's going to be our best thing. I look at it that if we keep the rainfall triggers, that's just during this trial period to see how this whole groundwater based one works out. And then we can jettison the rainfall one, later once we feel like that's, working. So
Tom,
I want to make sure I just want to make sure we're looking at it like it can be based on groundwater emergency. It can be based on this new groundwater level assessment, or it could be based on a rainfall trigger or obviously production limitations.
But my impression is that we're not there yet with the groundwater, how to do the groundwater level trigger.
Well, see, maybe Cameron can clarify that. I thought that we were there.
And if you'd like, we could bring back at the next meeting in March, a preview of where we're headed with the groundwater level trigger. And so that might kind of help answer some of these questions.
I think there's a little confusion because I read the paragraph after the choices and it's talking about option one is actually going to put greater weight on a groundwater level trigger when conducting, but it doesn't say that in number one. So
let me chime in. I think I know the confusion here, if I may. I think this memo was written with the inherent assumption that the board would like to have basically the MGA's groundwater sustainability plans criteria embedded in it for declaring emergencies. So water levels at the wells and chloride concentration. So if water levels get too low or chloride concentrations get too high, that would give the board the option. And Shelley, help me if I'm make sure I'm right here. So I think that was kind of like their inherent take, and we may be wrong on that. And then in addition to that, would you like to include some kind of rainfall criteria? And if you would, option one of the rainfall criteria is what staff's recommending. Did I sum that up right, Shelley?
Yeah, so we've heard, that you do want us to move toward those groundwater based triggers. And so that's where we were headed. And the question was, do you also want to keep some sort of rainfall based trigger? But with the groundwater triggers, Ron, I think we're primarily looking at water levels. We're not necessarily looking at chloride. Is that correct, Cameron?
That is how we are approaching it. We could add the chloride concentrations as well.
So Cameron, I've got a question for you.
ESP metric for seawater intrusion.
I've got a question.
With respect to supply, the groundwater levels are a better indicator of how supply is being affected. But in the end, you're trying to prevent seawater intrusion, which is directly indicated by rising chloride concentrations.
So Cameron, can I ask a question? We've got basically 6 levels from 0 to 5. And are we close to being able to go, this combination of groundwater levels would be a 1, this combination would be a 2, or do we need more time on that?
No, I think we have the information to come up with a system that is 0 to 3, the differences between, and probably something greater than 3, kind of the distinctions between the very extreme 4, 5, and 6. I'm not sure we can make a specific distinction on that, but we have the information to say we can divide into relative stages Now, you may not completely agree with that, and then we might have to adjust how we do it. But we have the information to say the basin is doing better overall, so we can have a lower stage, or the basin is not doing as well, so we should have a higher stage. The information is available to at least propose something. Now, whether you agree with it, that's something for us to present and for you to consider. But the information is there to evaluate how is the basin doing overall. The question is it closer to being out of overdraft, or if the idea is as long as the basin is in overdraft, we think it should be stage 3, as has been the case for the last few years. Then it is, well, to move out of stage 3, we have to eliminate the overdraft. But even then, you have measurable objectives that you're trying to achieve that are beyond preventing overdraft, so that you have the operational flexibility and so that you have some kind of buffer going forward, that you do not go into overdraft again. And so we can just track how the basin is doing against these metrics, both before and after Pure Water Soquel comes online. So I think the GSP does set up the structure for us to create something and present to you an option that is based off of groundwater levels.
And I think because we have this capability coming on very soon, then I think that it makes sense to have that be our primary, criteria. But then I do agree that having the rainfall trigger in addition kind of protects us during this phase where we're not sure how that's all going to work yet. So I guess I agree with the motion. I just also, since you haven't presented yet, I think our main goal is whether we need to act to protect the basin. So I would think chloride levels would be valuable as well, just in case. It's kind of like insurance that if we're off on the protective water levels, we'd have another indicator to fall back on.
Yeah.
And as long as if it's added as an or instead of an and.
Or, yeah. Or.
Then, yeah.
Dr. Daniels?
I just want to make things a little clear for folks. Why just at this point, depending only on the groundwater levels, is a little bit dicey. Someone has mentioned that once we get this project going and running, if we are wrong, we could just crank things up or crank things down. And I think we've all seen that, our levels, our emergency levels, we crank them up and down, and whether we get any response at all from the public is always a dicey thing. Sometimes they respond to it, sometimes they don't. Last time, to get them to respond, it took the governor being on the news, every other day talking about the groundwater emergency. That really did it. And our groundwater basin, by the way, does not respond immediately. So for example, we are currently about 40% below average rainfall for this year. And do we see any response at all with groundwater levels? Well, maybe a little bit, tiny bit, but not much. And in particular, the groundwater metric is a 5-year average. So what do we see in that? Even if we have a little bit of response now, you average that over 5 years and you may see almost nothing. So it's nice to have something that responds, very quickly in terms of a few months. And, maybe in the future, we still want to keep that. But, right now, particularly since we don't have a way to crank up the water or crank it down, as someone has mentioned, on a moment's notice, I think we need a little bit of something quick to let us know which way we're going.
Yeah. Agreed.
So do we want to see Cameron come back with something at this point, or?
I think we should plan for 5 years.
Well, no, we're still planning. They're still planning to include the groundwater as a criteria for this.
Okay.
For this, I don't want to get rid of that. It's just our decision now is whether to include a rainfall trigger. And I think based on what everyone has said, including Cameron, it doesn't make sense to invest in developing a new rainfall trigger, but just use the one that's already established.
Yeah, and based on what
Add-
Director Daniels just said, it's sluggish to respond, and it might be more important for the higher levels of action, not the stages that are where there's less severe conditions.
Okay.
It's not clear to me that the public even responds to those little conditions. That's why we're at stage 3 right now. People, that was imposed when the state declared a statewide drought. There was a statewide drought declaration, and that it's remained there ever since. And I'd probably say just keep all 3 of those. And that's kind of what we done in the past in getting to stage 3 anyways. We took information and made a decision based on all the information. And I don't see any reason not to continue to do that, at least, and especially until we actually have some water, pure water source to refine it, so they're not pumping too much water into the aquifer or too little, that we need a finer tune. But right now, we're just.
So this is a great discussion. If I may jump in, Shelley, I think it would be helpful if you could indicate to the board what you're looking for so you can continue on with the UMP, and maybe that'll help shape what they provide.
So tonight, it sounds like the board is leaning towards keeping a rainfall and recharge trigger condition, which is great. I don't see any harm in doing that, and it provides an additional tool for you when you're evaluating the data that we'll still bring to you every spring. We can certainly also, and I think on that condition, it would be great if we could stick with option 1, because that is something that we can do now. We can roll it into the plan and keep it, and it doesn't take a lot of time or money to do, and it's accurate, and nothing's changed substantially from when that model was run. So I don't see any issue with it not being as accurate as if we did number 3. So I would go with option 1 and keep the rainfall trigger condition. We can certainly bring back at the next meeting a preview of where we're headed with the groundwater level triggers. And so you can give us, your feedback on that, and we'll make sure we get that kind of nailed down before we have to wrap everything up for the April public hearing on the plan as a whole. So I think that's the best approach to take at this point.
So you have a motion already on the table.
Bruce, is that your motion?
That was the motion.
Yep.
Yes.
I'll second it.
No, it's already been seconded by.
Okay, great. Yeah, great.
So roll call, Director Daniels,
Yes, please.
Vice President LaHue,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
Yes.
Director Christensen,
Yes.
and President Lather.
Yes. Okay, let me see.
Thank you, Cameron.
Yeah.
Yes,
Cameron.
thank you, Cameron.
Thank you. See you in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so now we're on item 7.3. This is a progress report of the performance of the advanced metering infrastructure leak detection.
And Alyssa Abbey, staff analyst, is going to present on this item.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. Is my sound good?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Well, good evening, everybody. Like Shelley said, I'm Alyssa Abbey, a staff analyst in conservation. And I'm just going to briefly go through item 7.3 tonight. This is a 12-month update on the progress of the leak detection capabilities of our newly installed advanced metering infrastructure, or AMI system. The board approved funding the AMI project with water demand offset program fees on the basis that transitioning from our drive-by automated meter reading, or AMR system, to AMI would save approximately 86 acre-feet per year, primarily through faster leak detection and notification. We last brought this, we brought a 6-month leak saving update in July of 2020. So a lot of our ways of looking at this stayed the same from our last update. But since then, we have made significant progress on the installation of the AMI system. We have nearly changed over all of the AMR registers to AMI and have rolled out the WaterSmart customer portal and have done a lot of work internally to improve our process for handling leak alerts. And our understanding of customer leaks has continued to improve. In our 12-month analysis, we looked at all of 2020 leak data to see if we're on track to meet that savings target of 86 acre-feet per year. And to summarize our results, we found that the AMI upgrade is primarily saving water by detecting leaks that we would not have seen with AMR and reducing the leak duration. So we estimate that the average leak duration to have gone down from approximately 20 days to 4 days or less. And we estimated how much water we could have saved in 2020 had all of our meters been AMI. And to that was to get an idea of how much savings we could expect to see once our installation is fully complete, and got an estimate of 97 acre-feet. And so even if we do discount that to account for some customers not responding to our leak notices, we are still in line with our previous estimate of 86 acre-feet. So based on what we've seen so far, we do think that we're on the right track. We're gonna continue to monitor these leak parameters and work on improving our analytic capabilities through working with the WaterSmart software engineers, and see how we can continue to improve, continue to help our customers with this really important feature we have. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about this.
Is there
We have
public comment?
Yes,
Yeah.
there's one.
Yeah, first we are going to go with the public comment.
Ms. Steinbruner?
Hello, this is Becky Steinbruner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for this information. I've been very curious to see how the actual water savings, because of the AMI smart meters, has panned out, if it actually did approach the estimated 86 acre-feet that was proposed to be saved. So I'm happy to see that it's working so well. I'm amazed to see the graph on page 33 of your packet showing how the number of leaks found increased exponentially as more of the smart meters were put in. I'm not in favor of the smart meters, I'll just say that. But I do have a question about how the projected water savings of 96 acre-feet per year, if 100% of the meters were AMI, can be justified. 62 acre-feet is at, with about almost 90% of the district's connections being on smart meters. So 97 acre-feet is not proportional to the 10% that is not yet on AMI. I worked it out, and please check my math, but if you extrapolate that savings to the additional 10% of the connections that are not yet on AMI, the savings would be 69 acre-feet, not 97. So I would like a little bit of discussion about that. And again, I'm glad that it is helping people find leaks quicker. That saves them a lot of money, and it saves a lot of production and pumping from the groundwater. Thank you. That concludes my comment.
Okay, so now we're back to the board. I was anyway, we'll start with Director Daniels. Do you have any questions?
Well, I was going to look at that same graph on page 33, and I was wondering what the staff's goal is for that. You know, currently we're but a little below 90%. I know there's still some things to be done, but so what would staff like to hazard a guess as to where we're going to end up with this? How many will not have this service, for example?
Shelley, do you want to
Sure.
address that?
So out of, I guess about 16,000 meters, I mean, we're hoping to get as many people as possible connected. Eventually, we do have some areas of the district where we need some additional repeater antennas to convey the RF signal. They're basically down in kind of like lower elevation, and we're not getting consistent daily reads from those meters. So we've left a lot of meters and drive-by in those areas. But I think we're up to about, what was it? 14,000 meters are connected to the AMI network right now. So, you know, it's not, AMI is not a perfect solution where every meter is going to connect and send a daily read every day. There's always going to be things that prevent that from happening, whether it's weather can interfere with radio frequency transmission, cars parked over meters. We see that in a lot of areas of the district. So, you know, we're hoping to get as close as possible. We still have some whole meter replacements that we have to do, and some of those are larger meters and they require 2 staff. And with COVID, we've kind of shifted away from doing that just because of the close proximity in which 2 people have to work together. So I don't know if that answers your question. We're getting really close, but there's still a lot of fine tuning and kind of the nitty gritty left to do with the system, whether it's replacing those last meters and registers, or you know, changing out also unusual shaped lids that we have in our system that are metal, and we need to change those out to composite that can prevent signals from getting through. And then lastly, just completing the infrastructure in those kind of tricky areas. So we're getting real close, but it's never going to be 100% of the services are working 100% of the time.
Okay. Director Daniels, do you have anything further?
No, thanks.
Okay, so Vice President LaHue.
Just a technological question. One of the statements under leak duration said that detections below 2 days are difficult to accomplish due to data delays. So
sure, I can speak to
I
that.
just wanted to understand that. That's all.
Yeah, so the way that the system works is that the meters send the reads to the infrastructure 2 times a day. So every 12 hours, there's a packet of data sent for each hour within that 12 hours. Okay, and that creates a lag, because if you have you know, you have usage exceeding a threshold that happens at hour number 1, you're not getting that until at least 12 hours later. So there's a lag there. Once we get that data, again, that comes in at 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. every day. And then those files get extracted by the WaterSmart software system. And that happens about 4 to 5 hours after it comes into the metering system. So there's another lag there. So that's about the best we can kind of do, is get it down to 2 days or less in terms of notification.
Okay, I'm impressed just from using it myself, just that, like, I've already got data from this morning, and then by tomorrow I'll have it by tomorrow. So it seems like I would be able to see on WaterSmart that I had a leak today by tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Yeah, and the
So I
other,
personally seems like I could do something about it.
yeah,
Well,
the other, kind of the setting for continuous use of leaks and the metering software is that you have to have water going through the meter for 24 hours consecutively. And so you don't know if, you don't know
Okay.
right when the leak starts, you know 24 hours later.
But you would know you had a higher use than normal.
Yeah, but again, because the packets come in twice a day, it could be split. You know, you could have a leak that starts in one 12-hour packet, and you have like 1 hour of high usage on that, and then it spills
Okay.
over continuous usage into the next 12-hour packet, and so on. So it's hard to give a, you know, like it's not an instantaneous notification, and it's hard to
Pretty
give
darn good though.
an exact number.
It's really good though. It
A
really
lot
takes-
better than 30 days.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing, the leaks that we're catching, and just, you
Yeah.
know, they would have run for 28 days. And, you know, people think, oh, well, we're going to see this huge volume of water. You know, there's no way we can have a leak. And that's just not the case, especially with irrigation system leaks.
Yeah.
You know, you don't see it. It can disappear pretty quickly.
So good job with all this. It's really coming along.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's my turn.
It is your turn.
So things are really headed in the right direction. Kudos to the conservation staff for all the hard work they've done on this. I was going to go the same place that Director LaHue went in, you know, what can be done to improve it, which I'd like to see agendized in a future meeting. Just, you know, what the settings are and whether they're what ways we can do to make it even better. And partly that's driven by this water savings estimate of 86 acre feet is actually a discounted water savings of 50%. Initially thought we were going to do twice that. And it doesn't take into account the soft savings from decreased incidents of high usage and increased customer engagement. So I just like to, it might seem like I'm asking a lot, and I probably am, but I really see this as one of the most valuable tools we have now for making people aware of their water usage and for decreasing the loss of water through leaks. So, and along those lines, in terms of the awareness, on page, what page are we talking here? 32, I think it is, where it talks about what happens now with AMI. You know, I think that I'd like to discuss how the warnings are being sent, and also how effective the staff thinks they are, whether there's a problem with that or whether things are working well. And let's see, I lost my train of thought here. Oh, the last thing I'd like to know is with the WaterSmart, it's new, but I had meant to go around to my neighbors and see if they knew about it. And I will commit to do that before next meeting. But I suspect that people don't know about it, that it's too new. And so again, since it's such a powerful tool, I'd like to have a discussion on how we enhance its use. But great job, great job.
Thank you. One thing I did want to bring up too is that there's a couple of different things that we can look at when we look at leak duration. One of them is just, how quickly do we detect a leak? But then there's also other things that affect whether people correct those leaks immediately or not. And so WaterSmart is giving us more tools to help people figure out where that leak is. We've heard from people that when we tell them your leak started Saturday at 3 p.m., that immediately triggers for them knowledge of where that leak is. And so we can start looking too at, can we decrease the duration of a leak once somebody knows about it? How can we enhance our customer service through WaterSmart in that way? So that even if we can't ratchet down our notification time due to constraints in the technology, we may be able to still help people once they know about their leaks.
Okay. Yeah, and I again, I would like to, since it is such a powerful tool, I'd like to see when you think it's a good time to present more on the WaterSmart and how it's being used.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly.
We're going to be doing a big outreach push prior to the start of irrigation season, also to hopefully increase the registrations. I think we're up to about 22% of the eligible accounts have registered.
Okay.
Getting really good feedback from people. So we'll be, again, doing that big push. We have an article planned for the next What's on Tap and the Aptos Capitola Soquel Times coming up. We'll be doing, I think, a postcard mailer to customers that have not registered yet. We're also, when we come across leaks where people haven't registered for the portal, when we're conveying to the customers that they have a leak, we're, informing them about WaterSmart and, what a great tool it is, and trying to encourage them to sign up. And I know the office is, working with people when they call about high bills and high use, trying to get more customers registered. So I think that's just going to continue to climb, especially, in the spring.
Yeah,
What
sounds
was the
like it.
percentage? Sorry, what was the percentage again that have WaterSmart?
The last time I checked last week, I think it was about 22% of eligible accounts had already registered.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason I want to hear reports about this and to make sure that you have the resources you need to make the tool as valuable as possible.
Yeah, and we'll keep ratcheting down. We've at the start of the rollout with WaterSmart, we didn't want to have anybody be overwhelmed, the office, or our staff, because that doesn't leave a good experience for the customer. So we kind of started not sending out the automatic leak alerts through the portal, but Roy was actually doing those manually and checking them and, making sure that it was really truly looked like a leak. So that's the risk. If you set your thresholds too low, you get things that probably are more on the lines of just regular customer water use and not leaks. So it's kind of been a check and balance, and just taking a slow approach so that we don't cause any confusion or have people upset.
So Director Christensen.
I know, I just wanted to compliment Alyssa and Shelley on, it was an excellent analysis and presentation. The report, thought it was pretty illuminating. I noticed the greatest gain in leak detection was made during the summer months, the irrigation, outdoor irrigation months. So it is a good idea to start, make another push to get people hooked up, because that's when the greatest return on leak detection might happen. And I have talked to a couple neighbors. It seems like the geekier ones that I know are hooked up on it, and they gave me feedback on, that 2 gallon per hour was too much communication, setting the alert to two gallons was too much. And so that indirectly, that I agree with you on that that could be someone taking a longer shower. They got caught, but or something, I don't know, but they didn't want to know about it. So all that kind of information will come with time. But yes, it was. I think it's going to be really promising. I just think even if it doesn't end up in the long run saving a whole, it doesn't pan out to be a huge amount of water that we predicted to save. It's really the customers themselves. I was especially in campaigning in all kinds of neighborhoods, and that was one of the things I said, I just really wish we had some way so that when I was away I could check and see what was going on, and that's probably the worst. And just a neighbor around the corner had the same problem. They were away for a month, someone stayed at their house for the weekend, left a toilet running, boom, lots of water gone. I think that it has a great promise in a number of directions. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a really proactive tool too. Roy's used it a couple times, not that it's rained in the last month, but prior to the last couple storms, he used the group messenger function of the portal to send out targeted emails to customers that looked like they had irrigated in the rain, and just asking them to shut off their irrigation system. Rainfall was coming. So really valuable tool to communicate with customers.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Yay. I talk to my neighbors all the time, and you'd be surprised how many people know about this, at least in my little neighborhood. And there's a lot of appreciation for it. And when somebody talks to me, when you're doing your outreach, you might want to give me some pamphlets, because I walk my dog every day and talk to people. But I appreciate it. I'm not surprised that we've seen such a good response as far as knowing how much is out there. And you're never going to be able to predict something that didn't happen because we caught it in time. So, the value of it is it could be much higher than what we're estimating. And thank you guys for your work.
You're welcome.
So do we have a motion, or is there anything? I think we're providing direction.
I'd like to make a motion that we have a presentation. Tell me whether 3 months or 6 months is the appropriate amount of time. Shelley and Alyssa.
I would say a little more time would be useful.
Six
so I would
months
do
then?
6 months. Yeah.
Sure.
That we have a presentation on where things stand with the AMI leak detection and the Water Smart.
Second.
Sure.
Was there a second?
I'll second.
I see Director Daniels and Director Christensen seconded it. What should I put for the minute?
Maybe Tom had already seconded it.
It's okay. Whoever you pick somebody.
Flip a three-sided coin.
I'm hearing Vice President LaHue, so thank you. And roll call, let's start with Director Daniels.
Yes.
Vice President LaHue.
Yes.
Director Jaffe.
Yes.
Director Christensen.
Yes.
And President Lather.
Yes. So the motion passes, and we can move to the next agenda item. 7.4, consider nomination of district representative on the California Special District Association Board of Directors. And Ron?
Yeah, I'm going to take the lead on this. Thank you, President Lather. And Emma may fill in and nod to her for writing the memo. So you saw something like this a couple years ago. There's a seat open at CSDA in our region. It's a 3-year seat. The requirements are meeting in Sacramento a couple times a year, 3 to 5, 10 various events as outlined in the memo. And so what we're looking for is if the board wants to nominate a board member, or I suppose you could do the general manager, although I'm not explicitly interested, just take that and direct staff to submit a candidate nomination if you do designate somebody. And I just want to add, if you do, staff, Emma and I have been working with CSDA a fair amount. Matter of fact, we have a representative come to visit us. We can work with that board member about, the interview process or different things related to CSDA because we know them pretty well. So I'll just extend that. So that's all I have, unless you have questions. I know you got to take. I don't know if there's public comment on this item or not.
Are the meetings virtual right now, or what are they?
I believe they were virtual. Emma, do you know?
I don't know. I assume that they're all virtual right now.
Yeah,
though.
I'm almost certain they're virtual. I've had other meetings with them and they've been virtual. So
we have public comment. Is that correct?
We actually do not on this item.
Okay.
Carla, are you interested?
Well, I am, but I was looking again at the meeting level and just wondering how they did that.
So it's like 7 to 10 times a year for meetings and then some other events.
Yeah, and so so I don't know. I didn't do very well in the interview process. The last one, there's a kind of a direct clash of points of view. But I don't know, is this an actual election or is it a?
it's one seat is up. I'm not sure why it is. It runs through the 22-24.
The term of the board member is expiring, and they've indicated that the incumbent is running again, but they're opening it up to all special districts in the area.
Oh, the incumbent is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
I doubt any one of us is interested, so let's move on if
let's
not.
move on.
Okay. We just wanted to make sure that the board had the prerogative if they were interested. So like to.
Well, if Carla decides she wants to, I'd nominate her, but if she's not sure, then I guess we'll move on.
Okay, so
we can nominate somebody and force them into it.
Yeah.
That's cruel and unusual punishment.
Just
yeah, I don't have an opinion about the meetings.
It's a great organization. It's just much wider than water, right? It's cemeteries to mosquito districts to sanitation to water.
Harbor master.
Harbor master, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Recreation districts.
It's a wide-ranging thing, but I think we're all focused on water.
Yeah, I think that's wise.
Okay, so we're going to move on to item 7.5. Consider approval of the agreement to extend the term of the cooperative water transfer purchase pilot project for groundwater recharge and water resource management between, did you make it long enough? The city of Santa Cruz and Soquel Creek Water District.
It's a whole paragraph.
Yeah, I guess I could have shortened that one. Thank you. So yeah, we've been doing the pilot. We started it 5 years ago, roughly. And we did some bench testing and paper studies, and then we launched it, the last 2 or 3 years of that 5 year, never reaching its full potential of hoping to get 300 acre feet a year. But, and then this year, not at all due to the weather circumstances. But, Santa Cruz is a great partner, and this is part of our community water plan, although it provides just a small fraction or hopes to provide a small fraction to help solve our problem. We do believe it's it helps add a little diversity, which leads to resilience, right? Resiliency, right? So what is before you tonight is to extend this contract or agreement, pilot agreement for another 5 years. That's, and the big thing about it is really the price. The price is roughly doubled. We put the price in here in terms of million gallons, but you can think in terms of it was roughly $330 per acre foot. And now it's about $660 roughly. It doubled roughly per acre foot. And because they went through a full study on this, the city did. So that's the big change. And then the other one would be to extend it. And they did some additional environmental work that should be noted too. And that's outlined in the motion there. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. I know you do have public comment on this one, but I'll just keep it
Okay,
short.
let's go to the public comment and then we can come back to our discussion.
Ms. Steinbrenner?
Hello, this is Becky Steinbrenner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I want to thank the district for continuing to work with the city of Santa Cruz and renewing this pilot agreement for the surface water transfer. Thank you very much. It's a valid project and can really help both agencies. I do want to clarify that it is my understanding that no transfers happened for this year for two reasons. Not only that there has been no rain, but also the agreement, the terms of the former agreement ended December 31st of last year. So I have gone back to look at some of the costs of this project. The previous rate was $326 per acre foot, and the new price will be $643 per acre foot. That is still much cheaper than what the Pure Water Soquel project water will be. Going back and looking at a technical memo from Brown and Caldwell dated November 29th, 2018, it projected then in 2022 dollars, the cost for Pure Water Soquel would be $4,600 per acre foot. And that was in 2018 when the project cost was $65 million, and now it has more than tripled. So I just want to put all of those numbers in perspective. I note that at the Coastal Commission hearing last year, the district could not provide an answer to the commissioner's question about how much the Pure Water Soquel water would cost per acre foot. But those are the numbers that your consultants, Brown and Caldwell, did give you in 2018.
Becky,
My
your time
question
is
is,
up.
will
Thank
you
you,
be
Ms.
hiring
Steinbrenner.
Mr. Farmer to again do the sample?
Okay, so now we're back to board discussions. We're still limited to 300 acre feet a year, is it?
That's the approximate amount, although we've never been close to that in the previous year. The big year, I think it was, Melanie, maybe you can help if you're online. I think 160, maybe Carla knows too, 160 acre feet.
5 was the maximum year maximum amount we got 1 year.
What was that?
We got 65 acre feet in 2018 to 2019. So I did a little bit of penciling on some of that. Yeah, we haven't gotten very much. And then there was another year, 100 acre feet in 2019 and 20. So for the most part, we haven't gotten that much water due to the drought constraints and the the first years is just getting organized and testing the water and making sure it would go into our pipes safely. But there's a whole lot of other considerations that go into whether they can supply us water. So, and we've gone over those many times too.
So it continues to not be the perfect solution for our issues. Let's start with Bruce.
Yeah, to continue that, yes, this is perhaps cheaper than Pure Water Soquel, but Pure Water Soquel delivers water all year long, not just in winter. And winter is when supply is great, but demand is low. So, even if we could get, a huge amount of water from them, our customers couldn't drink it up, and we can't inject it into the ground. So, its utility is relatively low, and so it's not a solution to our problems. It can help, but having Pure Water Soquels, which can deliver us 500 million gallons every year, whether it's a drought year or whatever, that's the saving grace. So I think we always need to keep that in mind, is that that's the thing that provides us sustainability, particularly since at some point the city is not going to want to just sell us water. They're going to want to send us water and have us give it back in drought years, in which case, we might give them water that they gave us last year, and so the benefit is essentially zero. So Pure Water Soquel is still required. I think that's the important thing. I was wanting to hear the rationale for why they were doubling the cost. I know they did a study, but I've never heard why it came out and said that the price should be this.
Yeah, I can comment on that, and it's in their documents, but they hired Raftellus Consulting. And Leslie, if you want to pitch in, I think you were involved with this, but what they did basically is said what proportion of assets are allocated to this. So they went through and looked at that. So just a fraction are related to this, and then and some other costs. And I forget, it's been like 6 months since I was involved and kept abreast with it. Rosemary and the partnership. But it was a full-on analysis, and they partitioned it out, allocating basically what percentage of their assets make this transfer happen, and that's how they did it. And they didn't add on any management fee or anything like that onto it above that. It's not a very good answer. I can get back to you with a more fuller answer if you like. It just escapes my mind right now, better description, unless Leslie is on and wants to chime in.
Okay. One other thing is that, and this is clearly just a test again, another 5-year test, and so it's going to end at some point, and who knows where it'll go. If we ever want to really make this be a full part of our system, a real alternative that we keep doing, I think it's important for us to look at quality, water quality. Since we're only going to be getting ever water from them in the wintertime, when it's going to be out of the river, the river quality that they have is pretty poor. And I think we need to have an update on that. The last time they did it, they had some constituents in the hundreds of parts per billion. And our groundwater was in the single digits per billion. And the stuff down in Orange County was in non-detect per billion. And so I feel a little, we've always been proactive about water quality with our customers, actually going in and paying for things that were already below the MCL. And so I'm a little worried about making this a permanent part of our system when these numbers are a little scary still, I think.
Okay, thank you. And as noted in the memo, we're also keeping our eye on disinfection byproducts as the longer they move through the system, more likely they are to increase.
Thank you.
Yeah, Vice President LaHue.
I don't have much to say. Bruce said a lot of what I was going to mention. Just that, if we could get water in the quantity that we needed at $643 an acre foot, that'd be awesome. But reality is that we can only get, whatever we can get from the city of Santa Cruz in a good year, and I think so. This is a good part of our portfolio to have this, and it's good for us to work with the city of Santa Cruz. And so I think it's great to extend the agreement. I'm in favor of it. But I really do think, and I'm assuming we'll continue our, water quality monitoring to make sure we're meeting all the criteria. That's all.
Thank you. Director Jaffe?
Very supportive of this, and I agree with the comments that Director Daniels and Director Lahue made before me.
Director Christensen, did you already say what you needed to say, or do you have more?
I know, I think it's a very good idea to keep it open and to keep researching. I mean, it's still, we still have a lot of testing to do to make sure, to see how it works in our own system in any case. But, it could be one of part of the critical arm that really increases the sustainability in the whole basin. Is that water, this pure water, Soquel water, things, we don't know how those are going to develop. We should keep these connections open. And I think and regarding the price increase, I think the price is going to increase. They'd already been sued by their own customers that the previous price was too low. So it was going to go up, even though we're still in a research price. I think it's a lot lower than they were originally hinting would eventually be the cost. And especially after they upgrade their purification systems, their water purification plant, the price of the water could go even higher.
Okay, and I guess we also need to think about our costs on our end for using it, because we do have additional testing and all of that. I mean, but it's still not bad price. So.
Right. President Lather, those costs shown there are the purchase price. There's staff time on our end. There's, infrastructure stuff that goes on, testing.
And don't you have to clean out the lines before you can take it? And
there's a fair amount of work behind the scenes and making sure other systems are on or off and that sort of thing. But the majority price of the price probably sits in that $660.
Okay, Director Daniels.
I want to mention seems like a little gotcha in the actual document on page 44 of the packet. Section 4, the second paragraph, talks about water beginning in 2015 and ending in 2020. So I think that's probably old language in that paragraph that needs to be updated to the right thing.
Thank you for pointing that out. We wanted to use the exact document that they put in, and we're in discussions with them about some of that. Thank you. So as you notice in the motion, it gives the legal counsel the prerogative to make such any changes like that seem appropriate.
Yep.
Thank you, though.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, Director Daniels,
Yes.
Vice President Lahue,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
Yes.
Director Christensen,
Yes.
and President Lather.
Yes. So at this point, we didn't pull any consent agenda items, so we can adjourn the meeting.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you very much.
See
Keep
you in
up
2
the good
weeks.
work.
No, I can't see. Oh, there it is.